Well, good morning, all. Welcome to our springtime information session for May. And today we are focusing on rural Alaska fire from planning to action. So I'm Melinda Chase. I'm with the Alaska Tribal Resilience Learning Network, and I am happy that you are here joining us today. We know that we are unfortunately, as much as we love our springtime and our summertime, the reality of fire is real in Alaska. It's real in terms of the safety of our communities and really our health. And so today I'm really excited that we have some guests that are going to really help us think about fire from several different perspectives. And before we get started, I just want to let you guys all know, our lands are significant to us all around Alaska. I'm at the International Arctic Research Center, which is in Fairbanks, Alaska, on the Trothyetha campus. And we have also folks with the Climate Adaptation Science Center, who the Learning Network is with, also based in Dena'ina Ithlan and Shaktoolik. And so just really want to acknowledge the lands that we are all on. I know many of you are zooming in from many different places around Alaska and perhaps elsewhere, so welcome. And again, many of you are familiar with the Alaska Tribal Resilience Learning Network. I think we're in somewhere close to 40 or just over 40 information sessions. So maybe you have joined us previously and you have recognized or know some of our team members listed here. And maybe you've worked with some of them. With the Tribal Resilience Learning Network, we try to support or provide a system support for tribes that are really dealing with environmental impacts and environmental threats from multiple directions. And we do that by providing technical assistance. We offer an e-bulletin. If you are not signed up, we encourage you to sign up. That comes out every 3 weeks and just has announcements and current events and information sessions like this. We also we're involved in cohort training on relocation, manage, retreat, and protect in place. There's several tribal liaisons that we support that network happening both across Alaska and nationally. And then as the need arises, or we sometimes offer training, usually annually, and sometimes that takes place in workshops at some of the conferences around Alaska. And speaking of that, I have a few announcements, not a whole lot today. I just wanted to highlight a webinar that is happening on the 20th. It's listed here. You might find it interesting. It's about the Coast X program. It's a couple of the scientists that are based here at the International Arctic Research Center who traversed from the Yukon Delta to Utqiagvik and really talked with communities along the way about the impacts that they were seeing across that wide, vast land. So that will be sort of told in storytelling fashion, and you can find the link there. And then also the National Tribal Infrastructure Coordination Conference is coming up. This was formerly the National Tribal Climate Conference. I can't remember what the I stands for previously, but they have a call for proposals due on June 1st. And we really want to welcome those of you tribal members to encourage you may want to put in a proposal for a presentation. We always like hearing from tribes as well as any of you who are working with tribes. And that conference is happening October 5th through the 8th. So today, what I'm really happy to have with us is our guest, Lisa
Amaniq.
Field. Thank you, from Alaska Venture Funds, and then also Trista Crass from the Council of Athabascan Tribal Government. And I am looking forward to this conversation. Being from an interior village in Alaska, my home village is Anvik. I do think about fire, and I think it's it's a fast. It can happen quickly and very abruptly across Alaska, especially with increased lightning and it's just something that I think this time of year is on many of our minds, but also how do we consider planning throughout the year? So I will turn it over to you, Lisa. I'm not sure, I think you were presenting, or maybe Trista, and you guys can give your introductions a little bit more thoroughly.
Yeah, thank you. If you want to, I'll share my screen here. Uvlalotek, uvanga atira Amaniq, nulakmichi singa Lisa Shield. I'm originally from Selawik, Akuligak, which is in the northwest area, right above the Arctic Circle. And I was raised in Kotzebue, which is a little further north and out on the peninsula. Um, I have been working in the fire service for about 15 years now, and I've been with the Alaska Venture Fund for 2.5 since we almost the inception of our Wildfire Resilience Initiative. And I am hoping that Trista can make it. She was on the Zoom call for a minute there. I know that she had a last minute engagement for some chiefs meetings down in another community where she was concerned she wouldn't have good internet access, and it looks like maybe she got foiled by technology this time around. But I will go ahead and proceed, and if she can join us later, that would be great. Actually, can you tell Melinda, is she on? Was she able to get in?
It doesn't look like she's
Okay.
on unless she's signed in from somebody else's. Yeah,
Yeah.
fortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, she wasn't able to get her microphones and stuff working, and I think she got booted. But that's okay. We will go ahead and talk about community wildfire protection plans and practical rural fire protection, and then hopefully take questions from you afterwards. And looks like I've got my coworker online, so if you ask a question, he might be able to help me out too without Trista being here. I would like to mention that my specialty is working with villages across Alaska with structural firefighting, with kind of a smaller emphasis on wildfire. But now I'm doing a lot more wildfire work because, well, as we proceed, you'll see that for Alaska, fire is fire. So if you haven't seen this before, the Alaska Changing Wildfire Environment magazine that was put out by UAF, our wildfire situation in Alaska is changing. This document is really comprehensive. It's beautifully put together. You can scan the QR code if you'd like to look at this magazine and get more information about how wildfire has changed over the years. The takeaway for this presentation, since I'm not doing an in-depth on the wildfire environment, the takeaway for this is that we have areas of Alaska that have seen increases in fire that are just baffling. And we want to ensure that our communities across the state are prepared for this increase. The Bristol Bay region saw a 7,500% increase in the last 10 years or so. And according to Rick Thoman with the Alaska Climate Adaptation Center, I think it is, he's a climate specialist, the Seward Peninsula and Copper Center areas are starting to see more and more fire also. And they haven't historically seen this kind of fire. We have fires that are burning up in the North Slope area where we have tundra without trees, and that's new for many community members. As I go through this presentation, I'm really focusing on the community member or the community aspect of this. And not so much this, I'm not going to be talking really heavily on the science part of it, but we have resources, and I can absolutely point you, if you have questions, in the direction of more of those resources for the scientific perspective. So what do we do and what are we having conversation with our communities about because of this? Giving information about a 7,500% increase in a certain region of Alaska is it can be really jarring. And when you give that information to a community without the information on what to do about it, it just feels, to me, it feels wrong. It feels irresponsible to say, hey, all these scary things are happening. Oh, by the way, figure it out. Talk to another agency, right? And so we are encouraging, along with the state of Alaska, that communities look into whether or not they can plan for a wildfire using a community wildfire protection plan. And that community wildfire protection plan, although it is a document, it's a document that can be used for future planning. It's really an exercise for the community in what their wildfire risk is and what their current capacities are and what they can enhance for capacity. It does end up being, a paper or digital document, but the process of creating that document is really where the meat and potatoes are. And so this little diagram, thanks to, I'm sorry to say, thanks to AI, we created this little tree. The roots of our CWPP, the real tap roots are going to come from the agencies. It's going to come from the state and federal agencies collaborating and working with local and tribal leaders, city officials, and native corporations. It could be hospitals, it could be members of the school district, really anyone in the community that feels that they have a vested interest in protecting the community from wildfire can join in on the writing process of a CWPP. One of the things that's necessary for that CWPP is information about the community and the risk that the community has. So we're looking at, creating a risk assessment using scientific tools that have been created either nationally or locally at the state level. One that's been really beneficial for us are some maps that Dr. Schmidt made for Bristol Bay area for wildfire risk assessment and exposure. But that process of bringing all those folks together and looking at what the risk is for the community, creating that plan, really the fruits of that plan are going to be the evacuation, outcome, the evacuation plan, building fire breaks if they're necessary around the community, conducting home assessments outside of people's homes and starting with, protecting the home first and moving out and teaching people locally how to do that and performing, home hardening for the homes themselves, really just enhancing their ability to withstand a wildfire should it come through. Public education campaigns so that we have everyone understanding what the risk of wildfire is, not just the people in the planning meetings, and then enhancing local fire response. And we'll talk more about a couple of those things as we move through this presentation. So our priorities are creating fire-adapted communities, doing safe wildfire response, both locally at the local level, and then when agencies come in, whether it's the state or the federal agencies, come in to help with that wildfire, ensuring that that's safe. Creating resilient landscapes because we can enhance our subsistence areas using fire and preventing certain areas from having heavy, deep fire. And then also at the very beginning of this whole process, we want to have post-fire recovery. We want to be talking and looking at what we're going to do when that fire does happen. We can't prevent all fires. That's just the reality of fire. But we can look at what we can do after a fire comes through and how we recover from that as a community and as a state. And really that recovery process needs to be put into the beginning of our CWPP when we're planning before the wildfire ever even happens. And that cycle is really what's helping us to create a fire adapted community where we understand that we live in the environment of fire and that we can adapt with that environment and with our communities. So just briefly, parts of the document itself. When we're working with a community, and, I'll mention Trista said this yesterday when we were visiting. She goes, you know, parts of the document are important, but when it really comes down to it, the community really only cares about a couple of things. And she's right. And those are in bold. Um, Having an introduction about a plan, having a background about the community and the fire history and where the different zones are and that sort of thing, that all needs to be in there so that, agencies can look at that and have a good understanding of the community when they're coming in to help with a fire. But really, the community itself cares about that risk assessment. What is our risk and where are our highest vulnerable areas in our community? And then what are we going to do about it? What's our community action plan? And sometimes, especially in our small communities, when people find out about what their risk is, they immediately want to move into action. They want to do something now. They don't want to wait for this plan to finish and then sit on a shelf somewhere and then get some grant funding and then eventually come back and then implement that plan. They want to figure out what they can do right now in the moment. I put a picture here of a man that I very much admire. He's now passed away. But when we were working on the CWPP for Dillingham and Aleknagik, when William found out what the risk assessment was for his area, he immediately wanted to take action, and he did. Even without funding, without anybody, writing any grants, he got his chainsaw and his four-wheeler, and he started doing some work around people's homes in that high-risk area because he could. And the last bullet here for the appendices is highlighted not because the community is excited about an appendices, but because that appendices can be something that's used to tailor information for the community to have access to. For instance, when in the process of speaking and doing outreach stuff with Aleknagik and Dillingham, they were asking and they were telling stories about a lot of their makivik, the steam baths, catching on fire, and they wanted information on how to, modify what they're doing with their steam baths so that they aren't such a high fire risk. So that was something that we put into the appendices. Community members in Delta Junction were really concerned about smoke and what they can do to protect themselves and the community from the smoke that comes from maybe prescribed burns on the military lands or the fires that are happening further away from them, because being in interior Alaska, they're receiving a lot more fire on the ground, both naturally and prescribed. And so they wanted information about smoke and what they can do about smoke and protecting themselves from smoke. So those are things that we can put into that appendices for the CWPP that can then be used by the community in the future. So I want to talk a little bit more about rural Alaska and not so much our urban areas. And in rural Alaska, fire is fire. It doesn't matter if the fire is wildland to structure, structure to wildland, structure to structure. If there is a fire in a small community and it's not supposed to be there, it can be it's an issue, right? And the community is going to handle that issue the way that they handle all the issues that threaten their communities. They're going to come together and they're going to figure it out. And so as we move forward, kind of in this conversation, I'm not going to be separating so much wildfire and structure fire. We're going to kind of talk about them as they are connected, because really when it comes to the the immediate safety of our community members in rural Alaska, they live within the wildland environment. Most of our villages, if not all of our villages, are within the wildland environment. They may not have trees right inside of their village, but they have other wildland, brush and grasses and things like that. So the agencies don't really do this. That we have a state agency for structure fire, and we have a state agency for wildfire, and we have a federal agency for wildfire. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. but the jurisdictions that are responsible for a particular community are going to be the ones that respond to that fire if it's a wildland fire. If it's a structure fire, that's not the same. The local jurisdiction is going to have to respond to that. So here's a slide showing the wildland fire jurisdictions. You can see that BLM, the federal government, is in yellow there, and the state of Alaska is in light blue, and then the U.S. Forest Service is in green. So should a community have a wildfire, these would be the agencies that they would want to report that to so that they could get support from outside of their community. When it comes to the communities themselves, the jurisdiction for a structure fire, so if the fire starts inside of a structure, is the local, it could be a local city, it could be a tribal government, it could be a nonprofit that has a fire department. That would be who the initial response would come from when it's within that community boundary of the wildland urban interface. However, over 60% of our communities in Alaska do not have a state registered fire department, and so they aren't able to get funding for structure fire or wildfire response for their community. And many communities with registered fire departments, so even if they are able to do the paperwork and submit that to the state of Alaska to be recognized, it doesn't automatically increase their capacity to fight fire. They still may lack personnel, infrastructure, funding to meet the minimum standards that are established by the National Fire Protection Association. And so on this slide, I know that, we're probably all Alaskans here in the room, so we know how big our state is. But I want to show you that those little red polka dots, our little chickenpox state here, those are the villages that that may not meet those nationally set minimum standards to be considered what people think of as a fire department. And when you look at this history of the American firefighter, I really like this image because, Anchorage, Fairbanks, Juneau, our larger communities, they have firefighters that typically look like the modern day firefighter, and they can perform the tasks that we expect, like we see on television, right, for firefighting within a community, to include managing any wildfires that happen within that community. But the reality is that most of our villages, most of those red dots on the map, are fighting fire like we did in the 17 and 1800s. And that is to say that they are using resources that they can, and they're figuring it out. And sometimes, they're doing an exceptional job when they have some training to catch these fires. And sometimes they have really devastating results, regardless of their attempts to prevent it and to catch that fire. So one of the things that we're doing here at the Alaska Venture Fund is working on a program called Fire Gap. It's fire incident response education and guardianship and preparedness. And this accepts the fact that we have many communities that don't have registered departments, can't receive training from the state, excuse me, to meet those standards that the state has, and that our communities are going to do what our communities do. They're going to come together and they're going to manage that incident. We also are recognizing that in the last 20 years, we have had, in those small communities that were with those little red dots, we have had 8.7 times more fire fatalities in structures than places like, the urban areas. And so, to bridge this gap, not only with capacity for structure firefighting, but also for that initial response to a wildland fire within the community's area, we need to fill that gap. We also have a lot of times firefighters that have gone out and received their red card for wildland fire training, and they come back home and a fire incident happens, and they aren't sure how they can use their wildfire training to manage that structure fire that's happening within their community. And so we really want to kind of bridge this gap for that also, and show that how you can take the training that you get from being a wildland firefighter and implement that safely with some base knowledge about structure fire and fire behavior in structures, both, to prevent that fire from spreading or to even catch it when it's early. So one of the number one priorities for any kind of structure fire and reducing that 8.7 times fatality rate, we need to be making sure that we have working smoke alarms. In Alaska, cooking and heating are the leading causes of fire. And so, making sure that we have, and it's not just Toyo stoves, actually Toyo stoves, and I say Toyo as a brand, but these monitor heater type stoves, they do really well. They don't catch on fire that often. So we encourage that. But the reality is many people have wood stoves, wood burning stoves. And so we need to be able to teach people how to prevent those stoves from catching on fire. Also in their steam bath so that that doesn't transfer that fire into someone else's home or into their own home. And cooking fires, this is my Amo, we call her my great grandmother, and she was showing me that she always sets a timer when she's cooking, because when she turns the dials on the stove, she turns the dial on the timer first, because she said, quote, "I'm 86. I don't know when my memory is going to fail me." So, and her memory was great all the way up until the end. But making sure that we have working smoke alarms is going to really be something essential in helping people prevent fire fatalities. With Fire Gap, because we recognize that everyone shows up for the fire, I say that, if the 5-year-olds to 95-year-olds are showing up to the fire, then we need to be teaching the 5-year-olds to the 95-year-olds how to manage a fire incident age appropriately. And so creating and utilizing materials that are recognizing the community's culture and how we tell stories and how we share lessons through song and dance and those things, teaching that to our children and incorporating fire safety messages into things that we're already doing with our kids. We may already have a dance group in our village, and so incorporating fire safety messaging and having them utilize that for creating songs and dances could be really beneficial. And when it comes to, just public education in a community, I've worked with, over 150 communities in my time doing this. And really, the best way to teach somebody something new is just by visiting. We visit in the post office when we go get our mail. We visit at the store. We visit when we're going to our grandparents' house to help them with chores, and they feed us until we have to roll ourselves out the door. But sitting down at the table and having a cup of coffee and visiting and sharing a video one-on-one is really how we're going to pass these messages on and incorporate them into our everyday lives. So some of our most problematic, we do love our trees and we do love our grass, but in certain times of the year, they can be very problematic for us. And so black spruce is one of the more problematic trees that we have in our communities, and grass. So this picture was taken in the spring, as we are now, and we've been having a lot of wind this spring. I'm here in Anchorage right now, and that can, dry grass and a little spark off of an old cigarette or anything can really light this grass on fire. And a lot of times people think, well, it's just grass. How bad can it be? But it can get enough heat and it can get moving fast enough that it can actually burn down more houses than trees themselves. So, we still want to keep an eye on that grass. We want to do something about that grass, and we want to educate folks about just clearing that away and making sure that, they have a safe area around their homes and around their buildings. The other thing we can do is limb up. We call it limbing up. So we cut the bottom limbs off of some of those trees. We don't have to get rid of all of them. And on the next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about placement, but limbing those trees up so that, your tall cousin can walk around the bottom of them without bonking his head is what we want to do so that we can keep fire down on the ground if it does come through, because when it's down low, we have a better chance of turning it off. When it gets up into the trees, we don't really have resources within our villages to be able to manage a fire that's up in the trees like that. And that really is going to need response from the outside, agencies like the state or the feds. And so these are some little key messages for us to pass to community members. The other thing that we can do, and this is what William was doing when he learned about this, he started doing clearing around people's homes, that first area around the home, making sure that, we're clearing from starting at the top of the house and we're moving down and then out. And so clearing away any, dead stuff that might have accumulated on your roof. And then that 0 to 5 feet area, making sure that we can, put things that are really flammable further away. It can be challenging in some communities because, they might have a small area for their house and they need to store certain things near their home for very strategic reasons. I think one of the hardest ones that people get hung up on is their firewood. We want firewood to be at the 30-foot area, 30 feet from your house, because your firewood can ignite and it's got a lot of fuel to help burn the house if it's right next to it. But in rural Alaska, when you want your firewood, you don't want to walk 30 feet from your home to go and get it. And so a lot of people keep their firewood, under a porch or right next to their house. And so coming up with strategies that maybe they don't fit the recommendations from the state and federal agencies, but they work for the community. That's part of what we're doing with Fire Gap is looking at how do we do that then? What kind of tools do we have? What kind of resources do we have to make that particular scenario safer for a wildfire? Can we cover it with a tarp? Can we build a little tiny metal roofed shed for it that's right up against the house or next to the house? What are some things that we can do to make it safer if we can't make that change? And that applies to a number of different things. But you can see in this picture that we can create a defensible space around people's homes so that should that fire come through, it won't do as much damage and we have a chance of saving the homes. And responding agencies, because the incident is moving so quickly, they're going to be looking at homes that they can have a success at saving quickly so that they can move to the next home. And sometimes, they have to make the triage decision that, this house is too much work needs to be done around this home during this fire incident that we don't have time for if we're going to be able to protect the rest of the community. And so, that's important to know for community members because there are things they can do over time, over a summer, maybe over a couple of summers to make their homes safer in the exterior. We also want to teach people how to use tools that are accessible to them and what the limitations of different tools are. We have access to a variety of things now with being able to shop on the internet, and some things are less accessible. The image here with the silver water extinguisher, that's filled with water. You can add a little Dawn dish soap to make it even more useful, but it can be refilled in your village with a regular air compressor. The one next to it, this is actually a training image to show what's inside of a red fire extinguisher. These are the extinguishers that most people are familiar with. They're called a dry powder extinguisher. They can be very expensive to get into a village. Something that I purchased here in Anchorage for say $35. Depending on what village it's going to, it can be up to $350 with all the airplanes and the hazmat fees that go along with it. And so sometimes those are not accessible to your everyday person in the community. And also they have a limitation when it comes to what they can, how much fire they can put out when it's, grass or trees or something outside of your home. And even something that's inside of your home, if a couch catches on fire, they do have some limitations. And so teaching community members about what the limitations are for certain tools is really important. Just briefly, so I don't leave you hanging, that black bag is a special fireproof bag for like lithium batteries. The frying pan, we teach people about using lids and how to use lids safely when cooking, should you have your pan catch on fire. The little tuna fish looking cans there up in the top right, those are filled with baking soda, actually, sodium bicarbonate, and they are used to magnet underneath the hood of your range so that if something on your stovetop catches on fire, it hits that fuse burns, and it explodes baking soda all over your stovetop. Of course, baking soda itself, we teach people how to use that safely and what the limitations are, and then fire blankets, how to use fire blankets and what their limitations are. Every fire tool has a limitation, and it's important for us that people know what those limitations are and how to use them safely and feel comfortable using them so that they don't get hurt. I believe that, you know, everyone can put out a fire if the fire is the right size for the tools that the person is comfortable using. And so that might be a really small fire, like the candle on your birthday cake. And that might be the only fire that you're comfortable with putting out. But it also could be a larger fire that, a whole room might start, producing a lot of black smoke, even a small building. And you have the training and you have the knowledge and the comfort level that you can use one of those water extinguishers and you can put out an entire room. We actually just had that happen a couple of weeks ago, and I have permission from the community to talk about it. Iggy had the initial pilot training for Fire Gap. They received 20 of those water extinguishers with people learning how to use them appropriately in what scenarios and how to do it safely. And then they were strategically placed around the village in heated homes. And they had a fire that happened in a shop. It was caught, and someone by chance caught that fire, and the response was with, I think they had 5 of these water cans, and they were able to, from the exterior of the building, put out that entire fire with just those water cans, which is a huge success story. They did lose the contents of the building because it was a very hot fire, but they didn't lose the building or any of the buildings next to it. And so that's great. I'm really proud of those guys. But we also have tools that can be used in the exterior. So a lot of communities still report using buckets when they have fires and doing bucket brigades. But there are other tools like wildfire backpacks that, these water backpacks that you just use the pump handle and you can spray water out of them. There are folks that have reported using pressure washers to, if you've got one house on fire, they're using a pressure washer to keep the other house damp and wet so that it doesn't catch on fire, or they're spraying down the trees and the vegetation so that that doesn't catch on fire. Weed whackers can be used prior to a fire, and then, of course, shovels and rakes and other tools. This slide comes from our Fire Gap training, and so we've got an actual weed blower because if the fire is really small, you can blow the fire back into where it's already burned and potentially, turn it off. Obviously, adding wind to fire can and there's unburned material can cause it to go faster, but again, training is necessary when you're introducing different community tools for folks, which is this slide here. If you make the education on how to use these tools so complicated that the user can't teach someone else how to do it, I really feel like maybe we're doing it wrong. I think that there are tools that we can teach people to use that other people can then teach their cousins and their friends and their family and their loved ones how to use it appropriately and spread that information so that we don't have catastrophic fires. And if we do have large fires in our community, we need to, again, go back to that community wildfire protection plan. We need to have a plan in place and we need to know what kind of equipment we have within our community to deal with that initial fire. Some communities have water trucks. They might not be using them for fire. They might be using them to wet their roads down for dust control. However, they can be modified so that you can have a pump and you can just use a small fire pump with that water truck. Some communities actually have engines, and unfortunately, Trista was telling me a story yesterday. For those of you that are just entering, I'm sorry that Trista Crass was not able to join us. She had some technical difficulties in the community that she had to go to last night. But Trista was saying that, there's a community that she's aware of where an elderly man in his 80s is the only person that knows how to use the fire truck that they have. And he's on a pacemaker. And when he has to go out for medical, they really have issues. He has a lot of stress and anxiety because there isn't somebody else that knows how to use that equipment. So sometimes, having big fire trucks can be more problematic than the community realizes. They take a lot of space. They have to be heated 24/7 all through the winter. They cannot be put outside. Even, draining the system isn't always a guarantee that they won't freeze and crack something within the engine itself. So they can cost a lot of money. And in some communities, they just don't get to a lot of where the houses are. Like that truck might be able to access a couple of homes, but they can't get out to where a lot of people are living. And so they're very limited on their use. Many communities have come up with other solutions. This boat that you see in the corner there is from Selawik. It's from my home community. There's 2 rivers that come around the community, and in the summer, this is how they spray down fires if they need to. It doesn't work, obviously, for them in the winter. But they are thinking outside the box. They found an old pump that moves water, and they successfully trained with this boat when we were there. Other communities have found resources for funding, and they've got these UTVs with these heated tanks so that they can utilize the water that's in those tanks even in sub-zero temperatures, and it doesn't freeze up. And that can be beneficial for structure fires. But also in the summertime, they can use the same vehicle and get more off-road with it if they needed to for a wildland fire. And then, building their own carts and storing things in connexes and using pumps that might be 20 years old, but they have a Honda engine. And so everybody in the village knows how to fix a Honda engine, right? So they can maintain these pumps and move water when necessary. When it comes to a big fire, I have not heard of a village that doesn't come together to take care of it. I feel like that's just what we do. And with some coordinated effort and some training, even if it's just on a piece of paper with some toys, to think about what would we do should a fire happen in our community. And with some guided training and some planning, we can start that community wildfire protection plan and incorporate the implementation and the training and the building of local capacity within that conversation and within that community. And should a fire happen that is beyond something that the community can handle, knowing when to call agencies for assistance and for them to be able to bring the tools that the community just does not have access to, that's really critical. This is an image of a dump fire. Dump fires are pretty common in rural Alaska. But as long as that dump fire is within the dump, it is a local issue. When that fire, if it should move beyond the dump and get out into the wildland, then it becomes something that the state or the federal agencies can come and assist with, which is the case here. This fire moved into the trees and out of the landfill. And so the agencies came in to help the community control this fire. Some communities may find that they're in the, even in initial conversations, they might start with, hey, we would like to get a community wildfire protection plan, and then have a few conversations with folks that know about CWPPs, and they may find that they don't have a high enough wildfire risk according to maybe the state or the feds. Maybe they don't have trees in their community, but they still have grasses and stuff. They can, incorporate some of the planning into a different document. This is a small community emergency response plan. A lot of it is for, who to call during different emergencies. But in the process of working a SCRP, they call it a SCRP, in the process of working a SCRP, you can do the same thing and start implementing and doing training in areas where you find the need for it. And one of the things that the SCRP has inside of it, and something that is a part of the CWPP, is evacuation planning. Just recently, actually, I think not even a week ago, maybe, Senate Bill 192 passed, requiring state and local officials to use the terms ready, set, go for wildfire evacuations. This is something that could be applied to other types of emergency storm evacuations, but right now it's for wildfire evacuations. And that basic concept is that when a community is put into a ready state, we know that, it's wildfire season. We are all in a ready state right now because spring has sprung. The dry grass is showing, the winds are starting, and we need to prepare before there's even a wildfire happening to know what we're going to do at our homes on an individual level, and then with our communities, what are we going to do if there is a fire? And that's what that CWPP does for their evacuation plan. The number two, which is set, is there's a fire happening. It may not be really close to you yet. There may not be wind blowing in your direction, whatever the circumstances are. There is an actual fire happening. And so you need to stay informed and know what's going on. And in our small communities, that might mean, hey, we see smoke on the horizon coming off of that mountain over there. We need to keep an eye on that. We need to make sure that people know that it's happening and what they need to do should we have to evacuate because that fire comes towards us. And then the last one is go. And go is really follow directions and leave so that nothing, bad happens to you. Because our first priority with all of this stuff is to not have more fatalities and injuries because of fire. And so that piece right there can be really tricky. If a community has not thought about how they're going to evacuate their community and they go to put people into a boat so that they can go upriver or downriver, what happens when you've got an elder who can't get into the boat because they, are trying to get into it from the river? Or what happens with all the pets? What happens when you take 60 people from one village and put all of them into another village with 60 people? Is there enough food? Is there enough places to stay? The storms that happened this last fall, Typhoon Halong, really showed us that even our hub communities like Bethel can have a hard time receiving so many evacuees. But even Anchorage, right? It even stressed the community of Anchorage and the response and the jurisdiction of who's doing what to receive evacuees from other areas. So even such a big community as Anchorage and Fairbanks having to figure out how to navigate that. So all that stuff can be done in the planning process. These conversations can happen before something ever happens. And we think that a community wildfire protection plan can really help people start thinking about these things and moving towards success. So that's my last slide, Quiana, for listening to me. I don't know if we're doing questions now or what the plan is, and I'm really sorry that Trista was not able to join us.
Great. Boy, Lisa, you are just a huge wealth of knowledge and information. You gave us quite a bit there, and what beautiful slides. I mean,
Thank you.
yeah, of course, a little bit alarming when we think about, some of the implications, but definitely thank you for your presentations. I put a little note there in the chat. If any of you, oh, look at all of the great applause coming in.
Thanks for all those hearts and claps. I'm just flattered.
Yeah. I will go ahead and open it up. We'll wait a moment if anybody has any questions. I myself have a few if not, but um, any questions that anybody has, you can just unmute yourself and ask.
I'm going to say, did I do such a good job that nobody has a question? Did I answer every single question?
Well, maybe.
I have a quick
Oh,
question, if
oh,
I may.
go ahead, Brianna. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Brianna. I'm with the native village of Napaimute on the Kuskokwim River. I was just curious, like, if our village or in our community has never had any sort of fire plan, and there's nothing really to even start or build off of, like, where would you recommend as like square one to starting off developing a plan and kind of getting our community in a better place with that?
Well, you can call or email us and we can walk through that. But I would say the first step is to look at the community, is it a community wildfire protection plan that you need? Is that the plan that you need? Are you in an environment that potentially could have a wildfire? What is your risk? We can help you navigate the tools. There's a lot of great tools out there to know if you do have a risk. Let me see. Um, I was going to say, I should have probably had it there. Maybe I can ask. I know that my coworkers, Kenny and Jeff, are online. Maybe one of them can drop in the chat the wildfire risk map that UAA has worked on, Jen Schmidt. You can start there and see what your exposure risk is. And really, there are a lot of communities that have never had a CWPP. You're not alone. We really should have, almost all of our communities should have one. And if you don't have a CWPP, do you have a hazard mitigation plan or do you have a small community emergency response plan? You can start from there and build up. But you can also contact us. It's not a small feat, right? Like Trista would have told you if she was online that she attended our CWPP training course that was 2 days. We did it up in Fairbanks in November. And, she said she walked away going, oh my gosh, this is so big. How do I do this for my communities, right? It seems overwhelming. And we can do it. We're creating tools that will make it easier. Thank you, Jeff. He put in the chat the map, wildfire exposure map. But we have, some tools to help walk you through that if you choose to do it for yourself. Oftentimes, a community that's doing a CWPP completely alone will need some help with, um, they'll need some help with the some pieces of the plan, like maybe the risk assessment they need help with, or maybe a community action plan. But there are a lot of parts of that plan that the community can do on their own. I hope that answered your question, Brianna.
Yeah, that was helpful. Thank you. And I wrote down um your contact information and stuff.
Thanks.
Great. We had another question from Emmeline. What are the ideas to reduce home or building fire in your village, or here in our village in Shishmaref? And I know you went over some of those, but does anything come to mind?
I I did. Yeah, out in Shishmaref. So you guys don't have a whole lot of trees out there. A lot of your challenge is going to be with grasses and brush and stuff. So if you're doing exterior versus interior, right? They're going to be two different things. I would say the first thing to do for exterior stuff is to, make sure there's no grass and things growing up. I can't remember in Shishmaref if you guys have your houses up on stilts or not, but if you have your houses up on stilts, clearing out that grass and stuff underneath the house and around the house so that should, maybe a child finds a fire tool and misuses a fire tool, that fire can't travel underneath the house and get that whole house up on fire. And then just clearing away from right around your home. As far as interior stuff, a working smoke alarm, I cannot express to you how important a working smoke alarm is. Fires burn hotter than they used to, they burn faster than they used to, and the smoke is more toxic than it used to be even just 20 years ago. So we really, really need smoke alarms working in our homes now more than ever. And so if you can do those two things, if you can help get smoke alarms in people's homes, and we do have the Red Cross, the State Fire Marshal's Office, and Johns Hopkins University, they are all providing free smoke alarms to communities that you can install. And if you have any questions about where to get access to that, you can also let me know.
Great, great. Um, I just really think I just wanted to share something really quickly in terms of the grasses. You know, up here I mentioned earlier that we often have trainings and training that we had last year, which involved discussions around wildfire, was that one of the villages, they said their elders, a participant said she always remembered elders going out in that village and clearing the grass when she was younger, but she doesn't see it anymore. And that was a coastal community. And so I thought that was, real significant to think about. And so Geraldine had a comment here, and she just thanked you for your presentation, and that Will was her cousin and relative, so she appreciates hearing.
Oh,
Yeah.
I really, really, I was so grateful to get to work with him. You know, he was a community member that took the initiative for himself. He took a red card training with Bristol Bay Native Association that we helped them host. And he was very inspired when he started coming to the meetings to, do his own work. And I think he inspired that idea in me to incorporate that fire gap training within a CWPP process. And I'm so eternally grateful for him.
Mm, great. Looks like Francis has his hand up, or her hand up.
Yes, hi, my name is Francis Davis, and I'm the preparedness coordinator for Alaska. And I really would like to, because I'm really big on the smoke alarm installations and getting them out to you guys. This is my first full year in this position, and I am not native. So my question is more, how can I respectfully reach out to you guys and get more smoke alarms to you, or help in that way from the Red Cross um, perspective?
Go ahead, Lisa.
So, yeah, so Melinda, do you want to? I just wanted to clarify. So, you'd like to know how to work with the community, or you're looking at how to get the smoke alarms
Yes,
out?
both. Sorry, it
Um,
wasn't clear.
yeah. So, from my perspective, as someone that was raised in a Inuit community, I'm also not native, but I was raised in my community. Don't tell my elders at home that I said that. Um, they I think that really getting an invitation, right? Like the community needs to be the one initiating that contact and requesting assistance from a state or federal agency or a nonprofit or anybody from the outside, right? You want that to come from the community, and then listen to what it is that they actually need and want. I would say that, that's the super short answer to that. As far as getting the smoke alarms from the Red Cross, are you asking if you have access to that, or are you asking if you can provide them?
Thank you. I was wondering because it's a program we have, and just like how we would go about coming out to presenting, but you answered by, being invited by the elders. And so,
Yeah, and
yeah.
and I think the way that you get an invitation is you show up in spaces where community members are. So, for instance, this learning network would be one space. Going, and talking with people, meeting people at AFN, meeting people at an ATCM conference, or the forum on the environment, or wherever, right? And getting to know people, and building some relationships, and then getting an invitation.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Francis, I was just going to reiterate the going to those events, and you're welcome to post your contact information here for those folks, and we'll have this posted online as well. Um, and so, well, it looks like we're right at 12:01, and you took us right up, Lisa. I mean, I would have been really great to have Trista here, but you definitely helped to cover quite a bit of ground, and it's just really been a pleasure to host this. It went really fast. So thank you. Thank you for sharing all that you know. And if you maybe one other quick question. Do you have any forthcoming training or events that people can contact AVF for?
We don't have any right on the horizon, but we are working on it. So yeah, reach out to us and one of the things that I feel like, everyone needs is we want to be able to provide fire gap for communities without the communities having to have that expense, right? And so we're looking at funding and finding funding. So if any of you are interested in just writing a letter saying, hey, we think this is a great idea, it's something my community would benefit from, we can always use support letters so that we can get funding, more funding, so that we can actually get out there and do more of this work. And right now, a lot of it's in, when opportunities arise, we do it. So will be really excited if you guys think this is something we need to do a monthly, training or conversation on. Maybe we can look at starting, webinars for training and having more time dedicated to this topic. We can do that too, if there's an interest. Again, we're looking for that invitation, right?
Great. Good deal. All right. Well, thank you, Lisa, and thank you everybody who joined us today. Happy spring. The weather is getting warmer in Fairbanks and across the interior, but I hope you all have a safe summer season and definitely put into action some of the things you learned here today. So, how's your good then? We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Juliana.